यस अनमोल मैम स्टार्ट करो.
As Albert Einstein once said, intellectual growth should commence at birth and cease only at death. Good evening, esteemed speaker, distinguished faculty members, and our warm attendees. On behalf of the organizing committee, it is my privilege to welcome you all to the fourth day of International Faculty Development Program on PhD crafting, proposal, and thesis structuring. We are honored to have such a dedicated and dynamic group of scholars and educators joining us as we continue this enriching journey of academic and professional growth. As we embark on another insightful evening, let us remind ourselves and the power of perseverance in research and scholarship. May this session inspire us to refine our ideas, strengthen our proposals, and move closer to academic excellence. Now, honoring the torchbearer of research and discovery, Dr. Naveen Kumar Ojha, scientist at A.J. Zufal Molecular Neurobiology, Saarland University and University Hospital of Saarland, Homburg, Germany. Dr. Naveen Kumar is a distinguished researcher in neurobiology, physiology, and biophotonics with a PhD in biophysics from Friedrichs University, Germany. Currently serving as a research scientist at Saarland University, Germany. He has previously held research positions at University and Jawaharlal Nehru University. His contributions extend to peer reviewing for esteemed journals like PLOS ONE and Brain Sciences. Recognized for his academic excellence, he has received multiple awards, including the German Physiological Society Travel Award and the Research Grant. As an active member of global scientific societies such as SFRR Europe, GNS, and FEPS, Dr. Naveen continues to drive innovation and discovery in his field. Sir, we welcome you and over to you, sir. Thank you. प्रीतम सर आई थिंक सर का म्यूट पे है शायद. हाँ.
Hello, Naveen sir. Yes.
Hello. I'm able to.
Yes.
Are you able
Yes,
to?
sir, you're audible now.
Listen?
Yes, you're
Okay.
audible.
Okay. So thank you very much for a nice introduction, and it's a nice opportunity to share some of my experiences. So, so let's try first with sharing my presentation. So, are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. There is some problem here with me. Now, let's start. So today I'm going to talk about data analysis and interpretation. So first I would like to start with a quote. So you can see here, without enough data, your statement doesn't really add anything in scientific research and development. That means for any kind of research and conclusion, or for your data interpretation, you need a solid data. So let's start to understand the data. Before I'm going to deal deeper inside the data analysis and interpretation, first I would like to show you some of the structure of thesis, dissertation, or maybe research paper or research report. So how it should look like. So you can see there is a first part of your research report would be the title, then abstract and the keywords. And in the sidewise, you can see there is a percentage weightage of the material. Just like for abstract and keywords should be 5% weightage of the total material. So for example, if you have 100%, you can see 5% will take your abstract and your keywords. 25% part will taken by introduction and literature review. 15% will be taken by methods, 15% by results, where you analyze your data, and 15% will be taken by the discussion part, where you interpret the data, you discuss about published data, filled gaps, and limitations. And after that, you conclude your data, where you finally interpret what does this data mean. And another part, so there will be appendix where you can write acknowledgement, references, and abbreviations. You can include your CV, etc., but that will not counted in your thesis. So in abstract, you can write something about problem statements. So what was the problem statement? How did you solve the problem? What were the main findings, and what were your main conclusion? In introduction part, normally you write normally you start with introducing the topic, previous research, and gaps, and what would be your proposal to solve in this thesis of a problem. Just find a question or problem that you want to solve in this thesis or in your research, and then you have to mention the method. So what will be the idea to solve this problem? Then you summarize your outcomes or results. You analyze the data, and then you conclude your results with some of your previous findings. You can find your findings, or you can also cite others' finding, that which kind of gap you have filled with this research. And then finally, you conclude the data. Pritam sir, hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Should I share once again, because there is a problem in sharing?
Yes, 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 yes.
Now, again, I hope everybody will see this presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, I would also like to thank everybody who participated in my questionnaire. And I found one thing in the report. So I asked the question: in scientific writing or thesis or research paper, which section you write at the first? And here is the data. You can see, I think more than 50% people voted just for the title. And also some people talk about abstract writing or introduction. But if we see, every part of your thesis or your research report will depend upon the data. So be clear in mind, doing research is different than the communicating research. So if you are communicating research, that means you have already done your research and then you are going to communicate it. That means you have a clear cut result interpretation, your method, and your some review of literature, some gaps you know better. And that's why, first of all, I would suggest, in my experience and what I have learned, to start with the result writing. So, first of all, you have to start with the result writing. So, some years ago, I was attending a presentation of one Nobel laureate who discovered this patch clamp electrophysiology, and he was talking about doing research in science, and he was telling that first of all you have to do your first experiment, then you have to analyze your data, and then you have to write something about your data, and then you will know where you want to go, what are the gaps, and what will be the next step. So in this way you can go further deeper inside the research, and then you can, in the end, depending upon the results and outcome, you decide what will be your title of research, what you have to introduce, or what you have to write in abstract based on your results, your findings, and then based on your research topic or data, you have to write something in introduction part and discussion and conclusion. So if you talk about results, so that is basically a systematically and carefully analyzed data and explanation of the data. So first term is data. So what is data? So data, you can say it's collection of information. Let's understand in this way. So if I see this picture, how many data or information can be collected from this picture? So some can say maybe four, five, six, or whatever. But if you see, you can see such kind of data, just like in, if you see very carefully the picture, if you see, you can count the number of participants, and out of total participants, you can also count the total number of male, female. You can also see the color of hairs, the color of skin, and also the race, what was the emotional state of participants, uh, how, what are the clothes they are wearing, whether it's formal or casual. Other data might be interesting to know, white or other color wearing cloth, and also related with age, female age, male age, right hand raised people, left hand raised people. And also nowadays with artificial intelligence, you can also detect the level of happiness. So in this way, in short, you can say the quality of collection of information or data depends upon the observer or researcher, and also depend upon on your experience. So how deeply you can understand the data, and how you can interpret, and what are the important parameters that you have to collect. So if you consider the types of data, they are basically of two types: quantitative data and qualitative data. So quantitative data means this can be measured, it is number based, and qualitative data are interpretation based, and it's a descriptive data. For example, if you ask number of participants, that were 9, so this is quantitative data. And if you talk about color of people, this is white, brown, or black, whatever, what were the emotional state of participants. So these kind of data are qualitative data. So basically, all the scientific data or research data are categorized in two parts: quantitative and qualitative. Let's take an example of another data from life science. So here are the CT scan of brain. So with this data, what will you see? So we can categorize data into two parts. One is qualitative and another is quantitative. So with this image, we can also analyze both types of data. For example, if you talk about qualitative data, you can see what are the damaged cells. So you can see the CT scan was taken on day sorry on day first and day 30. So you can imagine or you can see the red spot is smaller on day one, while the red spot that represents the damage of the cell, and that was quite bigger on day 30. So you can see the intense red spot was seen on day 30, that was bigger. So you can also see the shape of the tumor or the damaged cells that were circular, spherical, whatever. And also you can study the behavior of such person on day 1 and day 30. So these kind of data are qualitative data. While if you want to measure the diameter of tumor on day 1, so let's say it's a 2 millimeter, on day 30 it's a 20 millimeter. So these are numerical data. So this kind of data you can categorize into quantitative data. Similarly, you can also calculate area, volume, etc. of the tumor. So in short, you in quantitative data, they are basically numerical based, and you can analyze the trends of the event or trends of the phenomena with this data. If you see in the right side corner, so you can see a graph of depth of information and sample size. So you can see in quantitative data, the sample size will be bigger, but the depth of information or experience will be more in the qualitative data. So these are the difference between qualitative and quantitative data. So let's ask a question. What is the purpose of data analysis and why is it important? So
Sir,
for
sorry.
example,
Excuse me, sir.
yeah,
Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt. Sir, your slides are not moving. They are just static on a point.
okay, so,
Like the topics that you're talking, they are not actually
Yes.
showing up. They are not moving the slides.
Yes, sir. Now it's
okay.
moving.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Mhm. Are you able to see now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Visible now.
Yes,
Now
sir.
it's moving. Now it's moving.
Yes, sir. Now it's moving.
Okay. So I'm sorry. So let's talk about this picture. So we have qualitative data and quantitative data. So with this data, what we can analyze? So just for analysis, you can see if we have the information about diameter, we can also calculate the radius. Just like you can divide by 2 and you can have a radius of the tumor on day first and day 30. And you can interpret, so what was the increase in the radius of tumor within 30 days. So, and then per day change, you can also calculate by dividing total number of days with the size. And then similarly, you can also calculate the area and volume. And then you can interpret, so what could be the possible cure or prevention and a strategy. So to make a strategy to cure this kind of tumor, so we have to find a chemical or substance that can inhibit the growth of tumor more than the progressing rate of that tumor. So this is one aspect of data analysis. So you know what could be the future strategy to overcome the problem. So this is one aspect of data analysis. So let's see, conclude the purpose of data analysis. The first thing is to understand the problem or the question. So first you have to understand, so what is the problem you want to solve, or what is the question? And then based on that, you have to think about the data analysis. And if you know the problem statement or you know the question, then you make a strategy to solve the problem. And then you understand, if I apply this strategy, what could be the pros and cons to solve this problem. And then finally, you can decide the solution of problem or question. So these are basically the purpose of data analysis. If you see the steps of data analysis, it has multiple steps. So first would be the data decision. So first would be data decision. That means identify the objectives and the scope of analysis. So if, for example, let's talk about the picture or maybe the image of brain CT scanning. So if you see the image, so you have to think about which kind of analysis I can do to understand the problem. So first you have to do the brainstorming to identify the objective and the scope of your analysis and which kind of analysis I can do to understand my problem. And then based on your objective and question, you have to gather the relevant data from various sources. For example, experimental data in other fields. Maybe you can use newspaper, media, or maybe some papers already published. And then you can summarize, or you can take the data. The third process will be the data cleaning. So you have to clean the artifact in the data. So sometimes you have,
So,
hello, yeah,
so sorry to interrupt you, but again, we cannot see your slides.
I'm really very sorry. Now,
Yes, so now we can see.
okay. So the third will be the data cleaning. So you have to remove all the data that has some problem. For example, some outliers are present in the data that you have to remove. Also, you have to uh, critically think about which data are important to keep and which one to discard. And then you have to go for data analysis. So we have different way or different strategy to identify or to solve the problem. And then there will be data interpretation. So after data analysis, based on analysis, we can interpret the meaning of that data. And then you have to visualize the preventive action, or you have to conclude a final statement about the problem. So first, talk about the data decision. So it is basically called a problem statement. So normally it defines the problem you want to solve. It always just start why, what, where, in which, and how. For example, if you ask, what is the role of vitamin C in treating epilepsy? So basically it is a question in life science research. And if you want to talk about the business research, you can ask, why are we losing customers? So first, this you will have to think about the problem at first, and then we can go for data analysis. So the second, you can see after you define the problem, you need to determine which source of data will be the best to help you to solve the problem. Just like in example one, you need some brain imaging data to understand the problem, whether if I treat the patient with vitamin C, whether it is they are recovering or not. Or maybe in the second problem, you have to need the data from product sales and production data, and maybe more, to understand the problem, where are the problems. So first, you have to decide about the data, so which is the problem, and what is the problem and how we are going to solve it. So how can you collect the data? There are two types of collection. One is primary and the second one is secondary. In primary, normally you are directly involved in in collection of the data. For example, you just ask some questionnaires, survey, interviews, observation you observe in lab. You can do some experiments. And in secondary data collection, you just go for the material that are collected by somebody else, just like literature review. You can also go for government database. You can also explore websites or internet, or you can also buy some commercial database that are also available, especially for company purpose. The third step will be the data cleaning. So the data cleaning, it's very important to clearly describe the outcome, because data quality rule says the data should be integral, it should have consistency, it should have accuracy, validity, completeness, and timeless. So it should be up to date. So for data analysis, there are proposed principles which is called LCOA plus 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 principle of the data. So this is the abbreviation of attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete, consistent, enduring, and available. So you should have this quality in your data. So it should be identifiable, it should be clear to read, it should be up to date and exist at the same time. You have to take all the data at the same time to compare it. The data should be original, it should not be copied, and it should be accurate, and complete information should be there. It should be consistent, so consistency is very important. It should be durable, so strong data you will need to conclude something, and it should be available at any time. So data cleaning process is basically you have to identify what are the errors, just like inconsistency in your recordings, and then you have to rectify the problem in data issue, and then you have to remove the duplicates, or you have outliers, you have to remove it. Then you format the data, and finally data are ready to analyze further. So these are the steps of data cleaning. Next step is data analysis. So now we have to think, so whether we want to go for a qualitative analysis or quantitative analysis. So normally qualitative analysis focus on exploring meanings and gaining detailed insight using non-numerical data, while quantitative data emphasize testing hypothesis, quantifying relationship using numerical data, as we have seen already earlier. And this graph clearly shows the depth of information is more in qualitative data, while dependence and trends, other
So sorry to
parameters
interrupt
are
again, but it's happening.
okay. So we have to note some points, just like qualitative data.
बताओ छोरी रो मेरी छोरी
Hello, Naveen sir, you are muted.
Am I audible to everyone? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Mhm. Okay, so qualitative data also contains some numbers, as you can see with this graph. However, the main purpose of qualitative data will be to gain detailed insights, while qualitative research focus on words, description, concept of ideas, while quantitative research basically focus on numbers and statistics. So if you talk about the way of qualitative data analysis, they are just like various types of analysis, just like grounded theory, content analysis, discourse analysis, thematic analysis, narrative analysis, and interpretive phenological analysis. We will go one by one to each of the methods. So first, we will talk about content analysis. So content analysis, as its name says, it basically talk about content. So it first of all, you have to think about uh, already published media, or you have just imagine you are listening some interview, or you are reading some newspaper. So then you have to think about which kind of words are reoccurring many times, yeah, and then in that media, and then you have to interpret the meaning of that newspaper or that news or that interview, and then you can conclude your analysis or interpretation. So what was the purpose of that analysis? So for example, if you see in the right side, in the right panels, I asked some questions in my questionnaire, and you can see there are some repetition of words, just like language two times.
ಅಯ್ಯೇಟದ
Hello.
ಆಫ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡ
Research five times, and the data three times. So it clearly says that the major content of this kind of analysis, or this kind of data, and the purpose of this analysis was just to interpret the research experience, data analysis, and the language in research. Yeah, so the research, so how was your experience? What was your experience? Which kind of data you use? Which kind of language you use in research, or your teaching? So these kind of things you can analyze in content analysis. So for example, in this picture, if you talk about this picture, so you can see in content, so people are a smile, so you can just see the happiness, you can interpret the happiness. People are young, old, and you can also interpret by seeing the pictures, so the contents. So what was the content in that picture, or that media, that video, that newspaper, that interview? Another example can be an interview about just like women status in company, and the term will be very often repeated, like women rights, women equality, emotional support, etc. So you can clearly see this is something, the content is basically related with women right. But there is a limitation, so it can be very time consuming, and it requires a lot of readings and rereadings of the text. So you have to really focus on the content of that data. So there are narrative analysis. So this, at the term says the narrative. So there will be some narrative in the data. So it this kind of analysis is all about the listening of people, telling stories, analyzing what that means. It explore how something is being said. That is important. For example, so if you are seeing a speech of two different leaders, one is from women right activists and another is human right activists. So women right activists will talk about the status of women in jobs, women in politics, while human right activists will talk about justice to poor and rich, status of poor people. Yeah.
Am I audible? So sorry for the interruption, but so the slides are not moving according to your lecture. That's basically creates an unclarity. So please, could you see for the
Okay, so one can do now, so I can send my data to Pritam sir, and then it would be nice, Pritam sir, if you share the slide.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Mm,
Now it's moving.
okay, so there is some problems, but
Sir, you may continue now. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I already sent to you also. So okay. So if we talk about just like so I so meaning of this the narrative of women right activists is the meaning of a status of women in society, while the narrative of human right activists is the just to understand or just to say about the status of poor people in society. So this kind of analysis you can do, and the problem in this kind of analysis is also the sample size are generally quite small, because you are the leader in a special area are few. So you have to think about so how many data you can collect to conclude something. So this is basically you are analyzing some narrative of people, or also you can understand just like the politician. So there are two groups just like BJP and Congress. So they have different narratives for different things. So you can also see these kind of things in their speech. So you can identify the terms they use during their speech, and then you can analyze the motive of that political parties. Let's talk about the discourse analysis. So it is all about the language, and it's in terms of language and social context. You can understand it's just like so.
For instruction between, if you could please share that content analysis slide on the slide, and then you can explain it.
So I already slide everything to Preetham sir. If uh, he's ready, he can share, and I stop sharing, and then we can go one by one.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, because unless until if it's not shared, we will not be able to understand anything. So that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
most
sure, sure.
important.
I can understand. I can understand.
Sir, if you can send the PPT on WhatsApp group, then also it will
Just
be
a minute.
fine.
Yes, sir. Naveen sir, slides are visual.
Y- Yeah, yeah. So will you please go to the content analysis?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you mean from here, yeah?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Yeah. So please go in the play mode so that I can also see.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. So in content analysis, basically, as term says, it is about content. Yeah. So basically you have to let's take an example, just like you are examining a media, for example an interview or maybe newspaper. So normally you focus on content in your material. For example, if you are taking interview from somebody, or if you are watching a YouTube interview, you have to focus on some terms, and then based on that terms you identify the pattern, so how frequently they use that terms, and based on that pattern you interpret the meaning and the purpose of that interview, and then you analyze, well, what was the purpose of that interview, what was their motive. So for example, just to understand deeply, I also made some questionnaire before our presentation, and you can see in my questionnaire, so there were repetition of some terms just like research, language, data, and you can see how many times they are repeating. So that means, so the purpose of this survey was just to understand the research experience, data analysis experience, the language you use in the research, and this kind of interpretation I can do with this kind of data. So this is basically you are understanding the content of that media. If we go to the next slide, so it is about the, again, the new experiment. So Pritam sir, again, I am not able to see the next slide.
Now it's visible, sir.
So,
Hello, now it's visible,
so
sir.
everybody is able to see this? Is everybody able to see this slide?
No, sir.
It's not moving forward.
Sir, if is it possible, can you please share whole screen?
I think there is a problem in this MS Team today.
So please share the whole PPT in WhatsApp group. Then only we will be able to open and see.
Yes, sir, now it's visible, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take another example. Picture, you can see the content. So you cannot only analyze your content in print media, just like some written text, but also from pictures. Just like if you see this picture, you can simply analyze the people are very happy. So all people are very happy. All people are having this in this picture. People are also combination. People are young and old, male and females, and people are also from different race. There's this kind of interpretation, so you can analyze. So this kind of content, so what was the content in this picture? So if you analyze different pictures, so you can also analyze the trend in that pictures. Another example you can see, just like if you interview a woman status in company, you always see some repetition of words just like women rights, woman equality, emotional support, like things. So you can really interpret these kind of terms can be repeated, and these are the contents of a woman right activist. But there is a limitation of such kind of analysis because these are very time consuming, and it requires a lot of readings and rereading of text. Then you will have a collection of terms so that you can analyze later on. Can you go further, please? Next is a narrative. So narrative, as I told you already, maybe you remember, just like it is talking about the understanding of the story or social interaction. If you remember, so about the leader speech, so I think I can skip this slide. So you can see this because I already told you. So meaning of discourse analysis, let's start from here. So it is something about the discourse is something about written or spoken communication or debate. So this is the meaning of discourse. So it is about just like it is related with something language that you use in interview or in your tweet. For example, Elon Musk how many times tweeted about the artificial intelligence. So this kind of data you can use in social context. So normally he's also using working in a spacecraft industry. So how many times he tweeted about AI in a spacecraft. You can analyze the purpose and also for community. So for which kind of culture are there in his company and which kind of language he uses. So this kind of things you can use in discourse analysis. And normally you can also take one example. So for one, how CEO and employee communicate with each other. So this will tell you about the culture and the history of the company, just like which kind of whether they are honest, they are normally think about the women empowerment. They are talking about what are the factors that can be considered to improve the company. So how frequently, how easily they can communicate. So these are the things that a company should have in culturally. And what was the history, whether they were good for the employee or not. So these kind of things you can interpret and analyze in discourse analysis. Please go to next slide. Or maybe the limitation of this analysis is basically time consuming and it is occasional data because you normally focus one incident at one time. And the next will be thematic analysis. For example, this is just like term says based on a theme, just like it is how many employees in an institute use Facebook during work hour. So and how frequently they open Facebook every hour. So you can analyze this kind of data. This that will influence the working culture in the influence of social media on work culture. This kind of analysis you can do, but this is also time consuming and data needs to be reviewed often quite time. Please go to the next slide. So for example,
So
this is
sorry.
also thematic.
So
Yeah.
I would like to understand the difference between discourse and the other two that you have said in at the content analysis and narrative. Because in content analysis, you told that through interviews and media.
Hmm. Yeah.
Narrative,
Okay. So content means, so what was the content? So content means what was said in the interview, which type of terms were repeated many times. That is basically content. Yeah. Or for example, if somebody, yeah, this is content. The second one you are talking about content and discourse. So discourse is basically what was the culture. For example, if you are talking to your teacher in an institute and how you talk to your teacher and how other people talk to teachers in another department, that can come you can compare with discourse analysis. So culture and history, something like that. So and another one is can you go back, please go back one more. Discourse is just like the culture, history, and how powerful. For example, you always talk softly to your teacher, yeah, but teacher can be hard on you, yeah. So
yes.
this kind of power dynamics you can also study in discourse analysis. So you can here see in the diagram in the language use, social context. In social context, how behavior is there and how what are the underlying meanings. So of course your supervisor will can say anything to you, for example. Yeah. And another, what was the problem in another analysis? Did you understand or I have to repeat once again?
Yes, yes, I understood. But my point is like if I want to ask in analysis of the data,
Mm,
secondary data that's been published in the research papers, or you
mm,
can say anywhere. I mean, that's
mm,
already published in the research papers. If I
mm,
talk about, so
mhm.
what kind of analysis that would be? Like if we're doing the analysis of the various data that's been published in the various research paper about a particular topic.
Yeah. So this will depend upon the your problem or your question to be answered. So as I told in the earlier, so depending what you want to find out. So depending upon that, you have to choose a proper way of method. So in the next maybe after a couple of slides, I will tell you when which approach can be used. Yeah, depending upon your what type of things you want to understand. Yeah, can we go further, please?
Yes, sir.
Or just like this. So, for example, in this questionnaire, you can see the qualification of professional, and also you can see are you actively involved in research. So these are the data that are based on the theme of research. So these are the purpose of to find out the research experience and how many years of they have research experience, whether they have published, what were their qualification. So this is basically thematic data. Yeah, so this kind of analysis you can do in thematic data. Yeah, please go further. Okay, so this is ground analysis theory method. So you have to revisit another theory that is already available in the society. So you have to go to review, or you have to challenge, or you have to propose a new hypothesis. You have to collect the data from the basic parameters, just like gathering information very systematically at the ground level. Then you have to analyze the data, you identify the patterns in the data and develop insights. For example, understanding the data, what was the purpose, and then you can propose a theory. For example, so how frequently a graduate student from different departments take help from YouTube or PubMed during the writing of their dissertation? So basically, you have to, for example, somebody proposed that they use very often YouTube or maybe PubMed, and they read very often during writing dissertation. But you have to recheck. You should have a different opinion. You should collect the data, not following that theory, but you want to be just like not following that rule, and you are going to develop a new theory. So just to develop a new theory, you have to go at a ground level to understand and collect the data and to make a new theory. This kind of analysis you can do in grounded theory analysis. This is also time consuming. Please go further. We are just losing time because of these technical things. And that this is interpretive phenomenological analysis. This is basically helps to understand the personal experience. For example, if somebody is was suffered from cancer, and you can talk to them and you can understand so what was the emotional stress, what were the economical and social influence on them, and these kind of things you can understand, just like at a phenomena, at a particular phenomena you can understand the event, just like the event analysis. So at that event, what was the situation of that person, so you can really collect the data about the, for example, in cancer survivor, you can collect the data from economical background, social background, emotional state, what were their thinking about pain sensation, how the treatment were going on. So these kind of things you can collect and analyze about the cancer patients. So this is just like interpretive. So you will interpret after interviewing them or after talking to them. So this kind of data are interpretive phenomenological. Okay, please go further. Okay, so these are the things. So please go back. Yeah. So these are the, as you ask the question. So when to choose which data analysis. So these are depends upon the aims, objective, and the question that you want to ask. So you really should be aware. So which kind of thing you want to solve. So depending upon that, you can choose the type of analysis. Yeah, please go further. Okay, so next is quantitative data analysis. So depending upon the, this is of course depend upon the numbers, and also you can see there are components in quantitative analysis. Normally it analyze the trend, relationship, mathematical technique you can use. So a statistical technique you use to see the relation of independent variables. You can have a decision making strategy, planning of strategy, and other parameters. We can also deal with numerical data. Please go further. So there are two types of data, just like discrete data and continuous data. So in discrete data, normally we use these are countable and whole numbers. For example, the number of students in a class is 20, and number of cars in a parking lot. So these are in whole number. It should not be 10.5, yeah, 10.2. And continuous data is just like precise range-based measurements, just like the height, temperature, and the weight, just like 37.2 degrees centigrade. It should be in the decimal. It can be in decimal. So this is kind of data is continuous data. Please go further. So normally there is another three way of quantitative data analysis. One is descriptive, where you can analyze mean, median, mode, variance, and standard deviation. The second one is predictive analysis, where you use time series analysis, and for high level or big data, you can use machine learning models. And the third one is inferential statistics, where you test your hypothesis, confidence interval, and regression analysis. Please go further. So for descriptive analysis, the purpose is just to identify the patterns or trends in your data and to make informed decision based on the statistical evidences. You have to prepare the data for further analysis, such like statistics. So there are four components basically in descriptive analysis, just like mean. Normally you have to add every data and then divide by the number of data, that is mean or average value. You know better. I think everybody from research background know what is the mean. Please go click next, median. So normally median are the data sets, so it's a middle value. Yeah, so you can see in the sets of data, the middle value will be the you have to, for 5, 10, 15, 20, you have to add and divide by 2 the middle value, and then it will tell about the median value. The mode value is basically the repetition, the most frequent value, and a standard deviation and a standard error. So the next one is inferential data analysis. In inferential data analysis, basically you talk about the hypothesis testing. For example, you know that this drug is basically curing the epilepsy. So then you have to apply that drug, and then you have to collect the number of data, and you have to do a statistics to understand whether your hypothesis is correct or not. For that, you have to use another statistics, just like depending upon the data set, you can use t-test, ANOVA, or another other test. So, but I'm not going to talk about statistics because this is beyond the scope of this seminar. So some terms you have to understand, just like confidence interval. Just like the confidence intervals is just like about the data, how much confident you about the data. So normally it is talking about for example, you are talking that the mean value is 100 and the variation is plus minus 10. That means the next time if you are having a number, it should lie between 90 to 110. So this is your confidence intervals. So normally you can see the p values in your statistics set, that is 0.05 or 0.01, that will show you the significance. So normally confidence interval you can calculate by 1 minus alpha. So alpha is just like here you can see the value. So 1 minus the p value. Yeah. So 1 minus 0.05 is 95. 0.95, you can multiply by 100 to get a percent. So you are 95% confident about your data that you collected. Similarly, if p value is less than 0.01, you are confident about 99% about your data. So there is especially very least variability. In regression analysis, normally you investigate the relationship between dependent and independent variables, and there are three types. That this is also the beyond the scope of presentation. We can go further, please. So normally in inferential analysis, you can use different statistical tests, just like ANOVA, chi-square. You can do regression analysis. You can do t-test depending upon the demand of the data. Please go further. Okay, and this is predictive data analysis. So this predictive analysis, as it shows, so it involves in data mining, machine learning, and a statistical model. So for example, if you record something, for example, basically they use in electrophysiology or something in big data science. So you analyze the data, you process the data, and depending upon the mathematical modeling, you propose some conclusion or you interpret the data. So this kind of data is basically complicated. So these kind of tools that you can analyze in quantitative analysis of the data, for example, Excel, R is programming language that you use analysis, SPSS, and also Python-based program. And some are just like GraphPad, Sigma Plot, Origin Lab, Eager Pro. These are the software that you can use for analysis. Please go further. So here you can see a glimpse of data plotting, just like for comparison, this kind of graph you can plot. So there are a lot of open end, and depending upon your thinking, depending upon how you are going to show your data, um, you can plot your data. So that it should be easy to understand. Please go next. Depending upon, if you want to really correlate your data, you have to use heat map, bubble chart, scatter plot. So there are different types of graph plotting too. So I think this kind for graph plotting and statistics, you need to have another seminar. But please go further. This is just to show how many kind of data plotting is possible in science or in another study or in any field. So part to whole and hierarchical system, you can have a stacked or bar graph, diverging bar chart, population pyramid, icon, and similarly many more. Please go further. And this is basically temporal. So some data are depending upon the time, then this kind of data you can plot. Please go further. So data plotting is an understandable manner. Data, basically, to understand, it is an art. So plotting of data so that everybody will understand your data, it is an art. So please think about how to plot and how easily you can talk about the importance, statistics, and the number of the data. What was the interpretation based on your data that you can clearly see with graphs? That should be your motive in your research. Please go further. Okay, so let's talk about the writing. So if you talk about the first picture, how you should write the results. So after analysis, how you should write the research. So for example, if you talk about this picture, normally you should say like data shows a balanced combination of male, 4 number, and females, 5 in the organization, for any organization. So this is your result. Next sentence, their big smiles so all were happy and friendly. So this their big smile shows they are very happy, and this is your interpretation. Similarly, you have to clearly think about the things. So what are the results and what will be their interpretation? Yeah. So similarly, you can see in the red line, so their interpretation, while in blue line, these are the results. So this is the way you can write the result part, and the black one is showing about the interpretation or the future outcome. What are the gaps where somebody else can fill or maybe you can fill in the future? Points to be noted. So for writing, describe the results very carefully. Write in direct, clear, and concise manner. So number, statistics, significance where it is required. find the and write also the limitation of your research honestly, very honestly. Check multiple times for grammatical mistake and read many times and try to understand the meaning of your writing and also the meaning of your data. Read, write, and correct until you are satisfied. And what will go wrong during data analysis? Just like if you have incomplete knowledge of the data, incomplete knowledge of the software or programming knowledge, you have no clear approach how to do data analysis or no appropriate data management and archiving skill, no clearly written data acquiring process, and wrong and biased analysis. So this kind of things um, will um, will make you in problem. So normally you have to learn the software or tools and techniques you are going to use before you apply in your research. Yeah? And this is the solution: read and learn every time. Thank you very much for everyone for your kind attention, and I'm sorry very much sorry for technical problems. If you have question, please ask.
So where and like I asked you before also, so like if I want to do a review of the secondary data that's been already published in the research papers, so
Yeah.
which method I should apply?
Okay. So what you want to know?
So I want to explore the
Hmm.
factors. I want to explore the various factors, say personal factors or any kind of factors that are responsible for the students' admission in hotel management programs.
Okay. So this means, so what are the factors that help other students to admit in or enroll in hotel management program? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So which kind of thing you want to study? For example, I think discourse analysis would be perfect for you because you are going to the social and cultural and historical background you can study. Yeah, these kind of things, in my opinion, because you cannot go for content analysis. So they will not talk. If you can also analyze content, but depending upon what they, if you talk to them, you have to go and talk to everybody, or you have to identify you have to read the interview, or you have to watch the interview, and then you also can collect some terms what the people who have admitted, what were their um, motive. For example, they are repeating, they have already connection, or they have already information about hotel management. But to understand what are the factors, so as I told you, the dynamics is basically the causing. Dynamics really means the causing factors. Yeah, the dynamics always will be in discourse analysis. So I think you should first read about discourse analysis in detail, and then you can go further, because this is basically a summary of all the data types of analysis. Yeah? And if you have any further question, of course you can discuss anytime. You can write an email. Yeah.
Where, sir, where I can write the email?
So there was written on the presentation, I think.
Yeah,
Can you share
yes,
first slide, sir?
yes, sir, I will share the mail ID to all the participants in WhatsApp group.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
So I have this question. So for example, I don't want to go into analysis. This is my initial stage only, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go into quantitative analysis, and I don't know about, I don't have knowledge about the different softwares and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
what I am thinking, like I'm asking you, I am writing a basic research paper for the conference presentation, right? So in which
Mm-hmm.
I want to write. Basically, I'm reviewing all those research papers that talks about the different factors. Some talks about personal factors, some talks about social factors, some talk about the economic factors, right? So there are different research papers that talks about different factors.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
I want to review those research papers. Now,
Mhm.
now, if you could please advise me how I can write a research paper from this only rather than going into the analysis, because I don't have knowledge about analysis now.
Okay, in my opinion, um, I would say to first write the questions or the problems that you are going to answer. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
First, first identify your aims or objectives. Yeah. So these are the things that you want to answer with your research paper or your in your review paper or anything else. Yeah, or any
Uh,
report. And then based on that question, just think about which kind of data you will need to support your hypothesis or to analyze or to interpret or to give some support of ongoing theory. Yeah, so which kind, just like you told me that you have some data about social economical things and other basically I'm not from this background, but I'm just talking about based on my
yes,
experience.
yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So yeah, so you can collect this is the way of doing science. Yeah. So then you can just see on the look on the data, and then you can you will find a trend in that data. Either you can see the poor people will go to that study, or maybe the socialist where the people the where the elders are educated, that will go to another study or something like that. You can find a trend if you have some collection of data,
Okay,
and then you can first to write the question, then second to look at the data, and then you can start writing something that what you thought after looking at data, and then you can go for some another expert in your field or maybe somebody else who can explain you whether you are thinking in a right direction or not. But this is the way to start of your research paper. So basically first look at the problem statement, so decision making, as I told. So first you decide, so what was the problem that you are going to solve.
okay, sir.
The
So
problem
this
is
was
Thank
that
you so much,
problem
sir.
sorry problem is that so you have many questions. So normally people focus on only one question or maybe two questions. Yeah. So first try to find out answer of one question, and then you can go further. So this is not a one day job, but of course you will, if you have time, you can spend little bit on it, and then you will get the answer. And then I think first thing you will have to start look on the data, and then start writing about that data.
all right, sir. So this would be a part of discourse analysis,
If you
right?
are talking about yes, if you are talking about social cultural influence and dynamics, for example, what are the factors, so that should come under discourse analysis.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Dynamics of
I would, excuse me, ma'am. We are running out of time, so I would also like others to ask their queries. Although we'll be sharing the email ID of Sir, and you will be getting enough time to ask him about your insights or all the in depth questions that you have right now. So for now, I would also open the portal for others also if they're having any query. I request all the attendees, if they have any query, they can go on and they can ask Sir about it.
Yeah,
good
so
evening, sir.
one Purnima Srivastav has asked a question. So in experimental research, minimum sample size कितना होना चाहिए? Because अलग अलग बुक्स में अलग अलग जानकारी मिलती है. Depending upon your data, for example, if you are talking about the about animal, so according to ethical research, minimum animals should be three. And if you are talking about the data, so n number, so normally it should be in life science should be five or six, but also depending upon the subject or the topic of your experiment. For imaging data, you will need maybe 100. 100 slides. For imaging data, you will need maximum because you have a maximum variability in the data. So depending upon the variability, because normally first stage is just to find the data, you plot and find the how whether how is the distribution in data, so whether it is Gaussian distributed or not, so whether they are really, you have to see the pattern of data. But normally in life science or in experimental data, normally minimum data is 5 or 6 would be sufficient. But as I told, so depending upon the type of experiment, so you are talking about live animal, it should 3 would be fine, because according to ethical committee you cannot kill more than 3 or 5 animal for a single experiment. Yeah. But for imaging experiment, you have from one brain slide or from one section you will get a number of data, so that in that case you will need maybe more than 100 data.
So may I?
Yeah.
So,
So what's the parametric and non-parametric test?
Okay. So as I told, so I think you can go further. We have not mentioned any statistical analysis in this seminar. So if you really want to know more, I think I can give you another information in next seminar whenever it is there. So all the, not about t-test, but not about parametric distribution of the data, not only about the ANOVA or chi-square. So we can go further in detail, but this is the beyond the scope of this presentation. We can go further.
Okay, so okay.
so
One
may I?
request from organization team, if you could please share the PPT of today's session, because it will be very difficult for us to even in the uh, get in touch on YouTube also.
Okay, ma'am, your insights have been taken carefully and we will do the needful. Thank you. I request if anybody else also present over here wants to
Sir, may I?
ask, sir. Yes, ma'am, please.
Good evening, sir. Actually, sir,
Good
I
evening.
have already completed my thesis and published 2 papers in a spouse or a referred journal. But I have
Nice.
a doubt about the methodology. I use
Mm-hmm.
methodology like the library test, final test, and slip hub because my research on a foreign language, which was launched by the Delhi government, it is a recently work.
Mm-hmm.
So I never, मेरे को अभी तक वो नहीं मिला कि किसी ने इस पर रिसर्च किया, तो इट्स माय फर्स्ट टाइम.
Mm-hmm.
So I use methodology like statements, problems and
Mm-hmm.
readability टेस्ट जो स्टूडेंट्स को लेके डिसाइड किया है कि पहले फर्स्ट प्री जैसे प्री टेस्ट होते हैं स्कूल में स्टूडेंट्स के, फिर फाइनल टेस्ट होते हैं उसके अकॉर्डिंग, एंड देन रिजल्ट जो मैंने निकाला है वो उनके चैलेंजेस और लैंग्वेज को लेके पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट को लेकर मैंने उसका रिजल्ट निकाला है. इट्स ओके.
So what is your question? आपका क्वेश्चन क्या है? मतलब अगर जैसे मान लीजिए स्टडी नहीं हुआ तो आप करना चाहते हैं या पैसे पब्लिश करें या नहीं?
नहीं सर, पेपर तो पब्लिश करा दिया है, वो एक्सेप्ट भी
हम्म।
हो गया,
हम्म।
बट मेरा जो रिजल्ट निकल रहा है थीसिस
हम्म।
के अंदर जो में वो स्टूडेंट्स और जो लर्नर्स हैं, हमारे जो
हम्म।
लर्नर्स हैं और टीचर्स हैं, उनको जो
हम्म।
प्रॉब्लम फेस हुई है, जो चैलेंजेस आए हैं
हम्म।
सिखाने के लिए, क्योंकि अभी तक गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में लैंग्वेजेस को सिखाना अलाउ नहीं था, बट अब
हम्म।
डीबीएसई स्कूल जो बनी है उसके अंदर लैंग्वेजेस आई हैं.
हम्म।
तो उनमें टीचर्स और स्टूडेंट्स को प्रॉब्लम आ रही है क्योंकि उनके पास सफिशिएंट टॉपिक नहीं है पूरा कि उनको
हम्म।
क्या क्या सिखाया जाए सबसे
हम्म।
पहले, ताकि उनका बेस स्ट्रांग बने, या बेस ही सिखाना है या उससे ऊपर सिखाना है. तो उसका पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट को लेकर
हम्म।
उसका जो रिजल्ट निकल रहा है वो 50-50% है. मतलब कुछ स्टूडेंट्स कह रहे हैं कि हमारे लिए इतना इनफ है, कुछ कह रहे हैं कि नहीं है.
हम्म।
तो ये हम जो रिजल्ट निकला है वो क्या उसके बेस पे हमारा जो हाइपोथेसिस निकलेगा वो किस
हम्म।
बेस पे निकलेगा?
बेस्ड ऑन रिसर्च, जैसे आपने जो डेटा निकाला, देखिए आपको जब राइट करना हो, जो
जी.
आपने जो भी एक हाइपोथेसिस लिया, में भी हाइपोथेसिस कई बार रिजेक्ट हो जाता है जब आप
जी.
रिसर्च करने जाते हैं। मतलब बाद में कुछ दिन बाद मालूम चलता है जो मैंने सोचा था वो नॉनसेंस था, वो सही नहीं है। तो
जी
ऐसे केस में बेस्ड ऑन रिजल्ट जो आपके पास आया है उसके बेसिस पर आप हाइपोथेसिस राइटिंग में लिखें, है ना,
ओके
कि ऑब्जेक्टिव ये है, क्योंकि रिपोर्ट क्या होता है कि ये पोस्ट होता है। आपने
ओके
रिसर्च कर लिया, हाइपोथेसिस या आपने थ्योरी लिखा, जैसे आपने पीएचडी थीसिस लिखने का मतलब यही होता है कि आपने काम कर लिया है और आपने एक चीज पर रिसर्च किया है और ये आपका कंक्लूजन है।
जी
तो आपका ये नहीं हो कि मैंने ये पहले सोच लिया था लेकिन रिजल्ट ऐसा निकला। वो डायरेक्ट मैटर में होता है कि आपका जो रिजल्ट है, रिजल्ट के बेसिस पर आपका जो है हाइपोथेसिस आप वहाँ पे लिखते हैं। और अगर हाइपोथेसिस आपके रिजल्ट के बेसिस पर होता है तो बिल्कुल थ्रू आउट स्ट्रेट चलता है। आपका जो भी रीड करेगा आपका थीसिस या जो भी
यस
आपको उसको लगे कि चलो ये ऑब्जेक्टिव था, ये ऑब्जेक्टिव थे, ये इस एम में ये ऑब्जेक्टिव थे, इन्होंने ये ऑब्जेक्टिव फुलफिल किया और ये इनका डेटा है। तो बेस्ड ऑन रिजल्ट आप हाइपोथेसिस को फिर से री इन्वेंट कीजिए, तो
ओके
उसको
सर
रीराइट कीजिए।
लाइक मैंने हाइपोथेसिस में स्टडी में डाले से लैंग्वेज टीचर्स थे जो सेकेंडरी लैंग्वेजेस पढ़ा रहे थे गवर्नमेंट में। उन्होंने अपने
हम्म
उनके उस साइड के मतलब जर्मन का जैसे लैंग्वेज है तो उन जर्मनी की कल्चर से रिलेटेड एक्टिविटीज के थ्रू उनको वर्क एक्टिविटीज दी, उनको
हम्म
सिखाया, उनके
हम्म
एक्सपीरियंस या प्रोफेशंस को लेके कि वहाँ पे क्या क्या प्रोफेशंस हैं, वो उसके
हम्म
अकॉर्डिंग किस तरह से खुद को अपने आप को आगे बढ़ाते हैं।
हम्म। तो
और
इसमें नहीं होने का 50-50 आने का प्रॉब्लम भी है, क्योंकि लैंग्वेज ऑफ कोर्स ये डिफिकल्ट है, जर्मन लैंग्वेज
जी
डिफिकल्ट है। शुरू शुरू
जी
में इजी लगता है, गुटेन मॉर्गन वगैरह सीखने के बाद लगता है कि नहीं जान गए हैं, लेकिन उसके बाद जब कॉम्प्लेक्स सेंटेंसेस आते हैं तो डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है, इसलिए बच्चों का इंटरेस्ट खत्म हो जाता है बीच में, क्योंकि हम लोग रेगुलर यूज में नहीं है उसके।
जी
तो लेकिन जो भी आपका डेटा है उस डेटा के बेस पर कपिल सर कुछ बोलना चाहते हैं क्या आप?
हाँ सर, मैं
नो सर
ऐड करना चाह रहा था कि इसमें अगर मैम ने
हम्म
कुछ डेटा लिया है तो आपका जो भी हाइपोथेसिस है वो ऐसे तो नहीं है जब आपने स्टार्ट किया तो उस समय आपने उनको बायस होके आपने अपना थोड़ा सा वर्क स्टार्ट कर दिया हो। तो आप जब डेटा कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं उसमें आपको थोड़ा केयरफुली कलेक्ट करना होगा। जैसे आपने जो भी स्टूडेंट्स या लिए हैं तो मतलब उसमें स्टूडेंट्स इस तरीके के होने चाहिए कि लाइक जो जर्मन सीखना चाहते हैं और जो नहीं सीखना चाहते, कुछ इस तरीके का मिक्सअप करके लीजिए ना। तो इसलिए थोड़ा सा रिफाइन होकर डेटा आएगा और उसमें थोड़ा सा
सर
डेटा
मेरे इसमें
जब आप
थ्री
ले रहे हैं स्टूडेंट्स
लैंग्वेजेस
को
इंक्लूडेड हुई
हाँ,
है जैसे
स्टूडेंट्स को जब
जर्मन, फ्रेंच
आइडेंटिफाई
और
कर रहे हैं।
जापानीज।
हाँ हाँ, तो स्टूडेंट्स को
तो
जब
बस
आप
उसी के
आइडेंटिफाई कर रहे हैं।
जी
सॉरी मैडम।
मेरी सर थ्री लैंग्वेजेस से इंट्रोड्यूस हुई है जो
हाँ
गवर्नमेंट
हाँ हाँ
पॉलिसीज के अंडर आई थी, जर्मन, फ्रेंच एंड जापानीज।
हाँ
तो मैंने बस उसके अंदर मैंने क्वेश्चंस 25 क्वेश्चंस पुट अप किए थे, उसी के बेस पे मैंने पूरी थीसिस को राइट डाउन किया है एंड रिसर्च पेपर भी उसी के अकॉर्डिंग रेडी किया था। तो रिसर्च पेपर तो एक्सेप्ट हो गया स्पॉल्स में भी और रेपड में भी, बट मुझे
हाँ हाँ।
थीसिस में डाउट हुआ थोड़ा सा, तो मैं बस उसको क्लियर कर रही थी।
नहीं, डाउट आपका किस लिए कि मतलब आपकी हाइपोथेसिस जो है जो आपने अज्यूम किया था वो रिजेक्ट हो गया या 50-50 आया, किस
नहीं,
चीज का डाउट?
एक्चुअली मैंने अभी उसको क्या कहते हैं रिपोर्ट में डाला था प्लेगरिज्म के लिए, तो मेरा प्लेगरिज्म आया था 8%।
हाँ हाँ, सही है।
तो वो वही इशू
तो
था क्योंकि कोई कह रहा था 5% होना चाहिए हाइपोथेसिस, इससे ज्यादा हुआ तो वो रिजेक्ट भी हो सकता है।
नहीं, हाइपोथेसिस 5% होना चाहिए या आपका प्लेगरिज्म 8% आया है
वो
क्या? थोड़ा सा
प्लेगरिज्म
क्लियर नहीं हुआ।
प्लेगरिज्म
प्लेगरिज्म में 8% आया ना, तो
प्लेगरिज्म जी
हाँ, तो आपका जो डेटा कलेक्शन है उस पे बेस्ड है आपका सारा हाइपोथेसिस। अगर आप उसके
जी
पॉजिटिव में अगर आप खुद ही जितना भी कलेक्शन करना चाह रहे हैं डेटा, अगर लाइक इस केस में स्टूडेंट्स हैं और स्टूडेंट्स आर फेमिलियर विद द 6 लैंग्वेजेस, तो वो आपका पॉजिटिव ही रिजल्ट आना है, उसमें नेगेटिव होएगा ही नहीं कुछ भी।
मे बी
तो आप थोड़ा
यस
मिक्सअप
सर, वो
करके
तो
जब
मुझे
सिलेक्शन,
70
तो हाँ
अराउंड होना चाहिए, 70-30 कि
हाँ।
कुछ स्टूडेंट्स के लिए
हम्म,
नहीं हो सकता है कि लैंग्वेज प्रॉपरली और किसी के लिए हो सकता है, तो 70-30 इट्स ओके, बट 50-50 इज नॉट ओके।
हाँ, तो फिर आपका मतलब डेटा अगर आपने सही ढंग से स्टार्टिंग में सिलेक्शन प्रॉपर किया है तो आई थिंक डाउट तो कुछ
और
होना नहीं
फिर
चाहिए। और
सर्वे के
आप
अकॉर्डिंग ही
बायस
लिया
विदाउट,
मैंने और कुछ नहीं।
ठीक है।
प्रॉब्लम
तो ऐसा
प्रॉब्लम
कुछ,
क्या होती है कि हम लोग सॉरी, प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि हम लोग चाहते हैं कि डेटा का इंटरप्रिटेशन या जो रिजल्ट है वो हम लोग के अकॉर्डिंग हो। ऐसा कोई ज़रूरी नहीं है,
यस
लेकिन ऐसा जैसे सर ने बोला, अगर आप बायस नहीं हैं और डेटा
जी
सही है तो वो सही ही रिजल्ट होगा। आप उसको पब्लिश भी कर सकते हैं उसको मेंशन करके, ऐसी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। लेकिन बस एक ट्रेंड है और जनरल एक ट्रेंड चला आ रहा है कि नहीं, पॉजिटिव होगा तभी डेटा हम पब्लिश करेंगे।
ये बट वो वही इशू हुआ ना एक्चुअली। मुझे है ना अब तक तो था कि मेरा क्लियर होगा। देन मेरी कजन ने भी की है पीएचडी, तो बस उन्होंने क्वेश्चन पुट अप किया कि हाइपोथेसिस एक बार चेक करा लो, क्योंकि उस टाइम उन्होंने किया था, मे बी 10-12 years पहले। तो उनके 50-50% पे ही उनका लैक हो गया था थोड़ा, तो बस इसलिए।
मैं एक आप मतलब सजेस्ट करना चाहूंगा कि अपन कभी भी कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट करते हैं उसके नेगेटिव रिजल्ट भी आते हैं, तो नेगेटिव नहीं, नेगेटिव रिजल्ट आए तो वो पब्लिशेबल नहीं है, वो भी पब्लिशेबल है। आप नेगेटिव रिजल्ट आ रहे हैं तो आप उसको पब्लिश कीजिए। अगर आप ड्यूरिंग द कलेक्शन आप बायस नहीं है, आपने ट्रू वर्क किया है, तो वो पब्लिशेबल है, चाहे वो नेगेटिव ही
ओके,
क्यों ना हो, ना।
ओके, थैंक यू,
Thank you so much, ma'am.
थैंक यू मैम।
Yes, ma'am.
Can I, Sama?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a very useful and insightful session. Obviously, we all learned some new aspects to research and methodology. And we are really, really happy that by your presence, we could learn more and gather more knowledge. And thank you, sir, for being with us today. It was wonderful.
थैंक यू मैम।
Thank you, sir.
Over to you, Preetham, sir.
Yes, yes. Tomorrow, all the participants tomorrow will meet again at 7:30. Okay. So now we are in the left. Thank you, sir. Naveen, sir.